Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula, and of course, on the ones and twos, spinning his heart off, Jonny Tsunami. How you doing over there, Johnny? Good? All right, he's there. But with us today, Fiorella will be back later on. We'll be doing a show later tonight. She's actually at the radio station. But I have a little guest on with me I really wanted to talk with. I have a man originally from Syria. He goes by Poppy Chulaman on Twitter, and his name is Richie, and he's from Syria, and I play one of his videos. Let's check it out real quick. We put a little clip on my Twitter. This guy caught my attention. He had a lot of good things to say, and we never talk about Syria with people from Syria. So here's a little clip from Poppy Chulam, really quick from my Twitter, and then we'll get to talking with him. Well, while we're loading it up, Poppy, how you doing today? Or Richie, we should call you, right?
Yeah, call me Richie. My friends call me Richie, so of course. I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, it's really good to be here. And seriously, it's a pleasure. And I'm glad you guys, featured my stuff based on what I'm saying, just for the substance of it. That really means a lot. And there's not like many voices, coming out of Syria in regards to what's happening in Syria. You always hear people outside it talking, but.
Well, here's what you said that caught my eye and why I have you on the show today. I loved when I heard this. Check this out. This is Richie.
The reason that you have this situation today is because of Western imperialist intervention in the Middle East. So don't tell me that the solution to imperialism is more imperialism. No, you've done enough. Get out. That's it.
That's
the reason that you have this.
That's it. I love the way you edit. I kind of cut it right there. I wanted you to make a point. It's a shame because, what happened to Syria, and we talk about it a lot on this show. And even when I had Tulsi Gabbard in the studio and I asked her, I said, did you talk to the people of Syria themselves? What did they have to say? And she went into it. Well, you're from Syria. Just give us your overall macro sense of what's going on and what needs to be done.
Well, I mean, look, man, the whole thing in Syria is a mess. Like, you need a PhD just to understand what's going on, truly understand what's going on. And the problem is you have a clash of narratives. And what you've been hearing in the mainstream media for the past 8 years is one narrative, right? And you often have people on both sides, by the way, who speak for the Syrian people, but you don't actually hear from them. And, Syria is a really complex country. You have 18, 19 different ethnic groups. You got Sunnis, Shias, Christians, Druze, Armenians, Bedouins, Kurds. Me, myself, I'm born in Damascus, and my mom's side, my Syrian side of the family, they're Christian, so that's already a minority in Syria. And so what's going on right now with this conflict is that, if there was any hope of change in Syria, if there was going to be a revolution, I feel like it's been contaminated because you have so many people who sticking their hands in the cookie jar, and meddling, that there's no more political honesty in the revolution because it's been overridden and, taken over by these jihadi groups, by foreign governments. They have too many interests they have too many, too much at stake in this conflict for it to be like a true grassroots movement. Like, for example, what you've seen in other countries, and it's a shame because, Syria was definitely in need of some reforms. Of course, I don't think there's anyone out there who would say that, the government is perfect and we should just leave it the way it is. No, I don't think anyone would say that. But the fact that you have what was a genuine revolution now, appropriated by Western governments and taken over, man, it's just ruined everything. I mean, look what's happened to the country. Like, this is a country that is a jewel of civilization. There's so much history in this country. Everyone has been there, man. The Ottomans, the Romans, the British, the French, the Babylonians. I mean, there's thousands of years of history going back, and much of it's been destroyed. I mean, just look at the archaeological theft that's been going on, the theft of resources. Man, it's really heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. And when you see a lot of leftist voices and even progressives sometimes who are saying oh, well, we're in Syria, so we might as well just stay there. And, I mean, what is that? That's like saying, that's like, that's like robbing a bank and then the police showing up and you'd be like, well, I'm robbing it already. I might as well just keep robbing it.
Yeah.
What?
I think we'll get a little bit into that too as well, because it's kind of funny. Before we get to Trump, and what's going on. I want to be fair to my audience right now. Richie, you're in Austria, right? You're
Yeah,
studying
yeah.
abroad. Now, you're originally from Damascus. You haven't
Yeah.
been there for a while, but you still have your family there, and you still talk quite a bit with them, right? Correct?
Of course, yeah. I
Right.
haven't been able to go back there because of the war. I couldn't even go to my grandfather's funeral, man. I haven't seen my family in like ages. I can't even remember. It's really heartbreaking. It's funny because people think that only the people inside the country have been affected by the conflict. No, man, it's a worldwide thing. If you are Syrian or related to Syria in any way, you've been affected by this war.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have most of my family still there. And I'm in touch with them every day. I've been actually doing videos with my cousin who just managed to get out of the war. He'd been applying for asylum in Canada, and he finally got it barely like a few months ago.
So he's in Canada.
And yeah,
He's safe in Canada?
yeah, he's safe. But
That's
like I
awesome.
said, man, I still got tons of people living there. Like one of the districts in Damascus has been devastated. I mean, not devastated, decimated, like leveled. It looks like Berlin 1945 is Jobar. And, my cousins live like 2 minutes from there. Like you walk in, you're there in 2 minutes. And it's really terrible, like having to live with that anxiety every day. Like what's going to happen to my family? They're okay. It's really messed up,
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about you growing up, because my father, when he was on this earth, he passed away several years ago, but he was one of those guys who liked to go to like delis or restaurants and just sit around and talk to shit with the workers. And there was one particular group of people, they were Syrian Christians, and he would always sit over there and talk and whatnot. When I used to go pick them up and whatnot, I'd talk to a lot of these people. And I kind of got this impression from talking to them that Syria was like the Middle East, the India of the Middle East. All these different ethnic groups and religions living together peacefully. They might not agree with each other, but they're very respectful of their other different religions and ethnic groups and whatnot. You were born in Damascus, and you were growing up. What was it like growing up there? You said your family was Christian, and what else? And tell me about some of the other groups, and tell me in particular if you ever had any relationships or talks with people who were Kurdish.
Well, I mean, one of my best friends is half Arab, half Kurdish. So, I mean, that's already one thing. But 100% what you said, like 100%. I think people have some kind of misconception that like Syria is some like equivalent of Saudi Arabia. I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth, man. It's like you said, it's like a mini India, if you will, or I'd even compare it to the United States in the sense that you have so many cultures in one spot, right? It's like the melting pot of the Middle East, like truly, And it's 100% what you said. Like everyone, they might not be like the same religion or the same ethnicity, but they're all living in cohesion and in peace with one another. Like I've seen people be more respectful of each other's religions and race in Syria than I have anywhere in the West.
Okay,
It's
I
like,
believe that.
It's like it's taboo to make any kind of remark about someone's religion or something there. Like from my experience at least, and from what I've witnessed there, like you would never cross that line. Like I've never ever seen anyone do that. And like growing up, my family's Christian, but like all our neighbors, they're Muslims. And like, I never even understood that there was supposed to be some kind of difference between us. Like, we're just Syrians, we're one. So that's my experience. And I think that's the experience of many people. You go and ask them, and oftentimes they're going to tell you the same thing, because that's just the mentality over there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You were mostly in Damascus, right?
I mean, I've been all over the country, but I'm born in Damascus.
So what was it like
That's
up north
place I
by
know
the
best.
Kurds then?
Sorry?
What was it up like north by the Turkish border? Have you ever gone up to that area back in the days?
No, I haven't been to Hasake or like Kobani, which is
Kobani's
the areas
right
on the border.
yeah.
But I have been to I think the furthest up north that I've gone is Latakia, which is on the coast. This is near where Russia has that big naval base. I mean, I haven't been anywhere near the naval base, but it's famous for that. And or is that in Tartus? Anyway, they're both on the coast up north. That's the furthest I've been. And I haven't been to the Kurdish regions though. No, I have not. But I can tell you a lot about what's going on there right now, because with the oil and the
Have you been
Turkish
to the Golan
intervention.
Heights before?
No, but my parents used to work there. My parents were UN peacekeepers, so they were stationed at the Golan Heights. I think that's where they met.
Really?
And yeah, so I know I know a bit about the Golan Heights. Um, yeah, so
Well, let's talk about the Golan Heights right now because the Golan Heights, I think, is not talked about. Really quick, though, I have a $5 super chat from Danny O'Brien. Thank you for the super chat contribution. Danny O'Brien, and it is always appreciated on the couch. It says, Medicare for all, hashtag, costs less, covers everyone, creates wealth. Halloween the House will vote on impeachment. Danny O'Brien, I hope they don't vote for impeachment because they'll kill themselves. The night before, people are calling for protests. Hashtag Trumpoween. All right, Danny O'Brien, I really has got nothing to do with the conversation, but thank you so much for the super chat contribution. And if you can get over to our Patreon, help us out. I'm about to talk with Richie, who is known as Poppy Chulaman on Twitter, and he's got a great YouTube page. It's cranking. You're near 750,000 views, almost at that magic million, and we hope to get you there and help you out. But we're having a great conversation. We were talking about the Golan Heights. You're from Damascus. You've been around the country. Your parents met as UN peacekeepers in the Golan Heights. Tell me what you know about the Golan Heights, because that's one of those places, if we want to really go after Trump for impeachment, we want to talk about emoluments. And supposedly, he's opened up a couple businesses in the Golan Heights, and Israel is very protective of that land, is it not?
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, the fact that this guy or any U.S. president would, give himself the authority to award someone else's land to another nation, I mean, is an abomination of the highest order. I mean, I don't know where this guy gets, it's not. He declares that the U.S. is always going to recognize the Golan Heights as part of Israel. I mean, dude, like even if you support Israel, like there's multiple UN resolutions clearly saying that this is a piece of Syria, and it is a violation of international law to occupy it. This is what the UN says. This is what hundreds and hundreds of countries are in agreement over. So I'm not surprised now that you're telling me he's opened businesses there. I mean, the Golan Heights, to begin with, is not only a strategic spot militarily, but also because of the resources, because of the water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can I say, man?
Well, how was it like when your parents were there? When, did Israel still have a big presence there at the time? If they were UN peacekeepers, they probably weren't there as much. But now it seems like it's just open game.
I mean, I remember one story that my parents told me. I don't know if this is true, but they told me that you'd have a Syrian colonel and an Israeli colonel. They would put a chess table on the line where the border was, and they'd play chess on there. I don't know. But,
say that again. That is so awesome.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, man. Stuff like that happens. It's not always war. But the thing is that, you had actually a lot of, I think most of the troops stationed there were Austrians. And they actually pulled out. That mission came to a halt in 2012, I think, soon after the war broke out in Syria, because reportedly some of the UN troops were getting attacked. Of course, the question is now, who did it? Was it rebels? I really doubt it was the government. I don't think they're that stupid that they would shoot at UN peacekeepers. But yeah, so they basically pulled out because the UN thought that it's a danger. And this peacekeeping mission, which has been there for like decades, it just came to a halt. And it never used to be, when my parents were working there, it wasn't anywhere near as dangerous as now. Of course not, because like it just wasn't. The Civil War upped it to another level. So yeah.
Yeah, we were just pulling up on The Guardian that it happened several years ago that the Austria to withdraw from the Golan Heights because the peacemakers over Syrian fighting. So they got the hell out of there, and that was in 2013 that we see an article about that. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now, because I read your Twitter, and I saw on your Twitter that let me just jump onto it real quick and stuff.
Sure.
So before we talk about Baghdadi, let's go to the other one where we talked about the just taking the. And first of all, I love that retweet you have of the leader of ISIS, BSM. So that was great.
Yeah, man.
So, okay, so now Trump is just jumping in there, and he's just securing the oil. He's just taking the oil. I think Tulsi Gabbard just retweeted it the other day. It's like, we're out of these areas, but now we're going to stay where the oil's at. We're friends with the Kurds. They're going to keep our back. But now they're just, and I don't get this. I don't know if he wants to make the oil fields just part of Jordan or the oil fields part of Iraq and just keep them. But in a nutshell, what the hell is going on?
Well, I heard today that I think this was the defense secretary. What's his name again? Mark Esper, I think. I don't know.
Is he the
But
third defense? Yeah, whatever. He's
yeah,
gonna get fired
basically
before
the
you.
Trump administration
Yeah.
was talking about giving the oil fields to the Kurds, to the SDF, to the Syrian Democratic Forces. So what they want to do effectively is, I mean, obviously block ISIS from using the oil fields, because I don't know if people know this, but ISIS were robbing these oil fields blind. You know,
yeah.
they were smuggling this oil into Turkey, and Turkey was, of course, buying it off of them and fueling, you know, the ISIS war chest. And, you know, so the Trump administration now, they don't want ISIS to take the oil. They don't want the Syrian government to take the oil, even though it belongs to the Syrian government, whether you like it or not. And, you know, they want to give it to the Kurds because this is the most valuable resource in Syria. You know, Syrian oil only accounts for like 0.5% of global oil production. So it's very minuscule if you look at a global scale. But if you look at how much money it brings to the government, I think it's about a quarter. It's about 25% of the state's revenue.
So they need it.
They
need it. Yeah.
Sorry?
They need it badly, pretty much.
Oh yeah, they need it, man. I mean, just
revenue,
to like rebuild the country, you need money regardless. But now you need it more than ever. And what the United States is doing now, I mean, not only are they illegally in the country, along with all the other, you know, Western countries that are there and Turkey, but they're holding hostage the most valuable resource in the country that's needed badly for rebuilding the shattered economy and everything in between. And the other thing is that, you know, the oil is in the Deir ez-Zor region, but around Deir ez-Zor and also where the Kurds are is where most of the wheat production takes place. Again, this is extremely, extremely important. This is like the breadbasket region for Syria, and they're just holding it hostage. You know, I don't know what the play here is, but they're doing it as sort of a bargaining chip to be like, yo, we're still in the region. We're still in here, whether you like it or not. We pulled out most of our troops, but we're still going to take control and, you know, hold on to your resources. So we have a bargaining chip. And I think what's going to happen ultimately is you're going to have the U.S. government negotiate with Russia about what to do, because I doubt Trump will go and negotiate directly with Assad. So he has to go through Russia, you know, who will negotiate on Syria's behalf. And I don't know what's going to happen here. But yeah, last I heard today, they intend to give all that oil money to the Kurds. And the pretext for it is that the Kurds need to keep all these ISIS prisoners in check, and they need to keep them in the jails, and they need money to, like, you know, continue their operations. And so they're going to get it from the oil. That's what I heard.
So let's unpack this a little bit, because this is kind of a little interesting, because I've said before in the show, for me, and I've talked to people, this is a clusterfuck situation. Like you said, you need a PhD to just get in there and understand what's going on.
You do, man. Yeah.
Multiple ethnic groups, different militant groups, different religions, whatnot. And tomorrow I have a great guest coming on. I have a guy by the name of Mark Sloboda, who's not only on RT, he's in Moscow. He's great when it comes to Syria, Ukraine, and all these things. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth too about the Kurds itself. But we have said here on this show that the only deal that is inevitable, that will really work, is a deal between Assad and the Kurds. I believe it was in January, Assad was telling the Kurds, like, I don't know what you're doing messing around with the United States. They're not going to give you Kurdistan. They're not going to help you. They're going to turn their backs on you. You should come deal with us, and let's build a bond together. Is there any way possible that they give the oil to the Kurds and then Assad comes in with a sweeping deal and they somehow join forces together? Or is it a situation where United States is, and I still see this, United States has been punking like some Kurdish leaders, telling them not to negotiate with Assad, to let them know they'll still be in the area. So even though they're presenting this kind of like, oh, they got to deal with it themselves, they're still on the sidelines where nobody's saying, hey, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, is there a chance that we see the Kurds?
I mean, I agree with you, man. They are punking the Kurds, like, and they've done it. This is not the first time that they abandon the Kurds, you know, and I agree with you. Like, you know, whatever you think of Assad, it's just inevitable that, the Kurds are going to have to make a deal with him because, I mean, he's taken back most of the country now. So, you know, and they don't have the military might to stand up against the Turks, nor the Turkish government, nor the Syrian government. You know, the best that they were able to do, and they did a lot, was to defeat ISIS in, you know, the northeastern Syria region of Syria. But as you're saying, it's inevitable that they will make a deal with Assad. And matter of fact, they already have. Like last week, they made a deal with the Syrian government, just like he was telling them, for the Syrian government to move up and protect them from the Turks, from the Turkish army, from Erdogan. So I don't know how it's going to be negotiated with the oil, but I mean, I just think this is such blatant like imperialism. Like you have once again like a Western power coming into an Arab country and telling them what to do with their resources. I mean, it's an abomination, you know. And it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. You know how people always say like, "Oh, the U.S. going into Iraq for oil? No, that's a conspiracy. You're crazy for saying that." Like, dude, Trump isn't even hiding it. He's literally saying it now. Yeah, we're gonna take the oil.
That about him. He says right out, "We're gonna keep the oil. We haven't decided who's got it yet." And I'm like, wait a second. How the hell are you gonna keep that oil? And it's you know what, I don't even know. I said that Russia has to come in here because Russia's the only one who can really broker a deal, and I'm glad to see that they're there because Russia does have business relationships with Turkey, and obviously Russia and Assad have business, you know, together. They have an alliance of sorts. So I mean, I was happy to see Russia come in there and step up to the table, but I thought we were going to have. I thought we were getting out. We're not getting out. We're just moving around. You know what I'm saying? And seeing some of those pictures of the Kurds throwing tomatoes at the American vehicles as they're leaving Kobani, and then as they're pulling into Iraq, they're getting pelted even more as they're going into there. I just hope people see that. Not that I want to see, you know, Americans getting tomatoes thrown at them, but I just want people to understand it's like you said, we've done enough. Get out. It's enough is enough. We don't need to be there anymore. We shouldn't be there in the first place. And I think a lot of people don't understand is that we did fund ISIS and Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra over there. And then when Trump came in, we kind of swapped and said, oh, but we can't do this. We got to fund the Kurds. So we're like the military-industrial complex is just making money on all sides over here while the people suffer most.
There you go, man. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think, you know, it's nothing to do with like the individual troops, right? This is just the issue is the whole foreign policy being decided in Washington, D.C. This is the issue, you know, because and it's not just Washington, D.C. I mean, like people tend to forget the U.K. and France, they're also, you know, sticking their hands in there. They've also been bombing Syria. You know, my cousin was in Damascus when he got bombed by Trump, when he got bombed by the French, by the U.K. So, you know, my whole family was there, man. And it's like, they don't care who gets killed. They don't give a crap. And as long as the military-industrial complex is making money, they're going to keep, you know, exporting this imperialist agenda. And like you said, they will finance both sides. Like, you know,
they don't care.
And it's terrible, man, because I mean, it's terrible anywhere to see minorities being killed and the rise of like, you know, Islamic extremism, but especially in Syria where you had like this really nice mosaic of ethnic groups and this cohesion, this secular state. You know, people don't know that Syria is a secular country. Truly, you know, it's more secular than a lot of other countries. And to see that ruined and like thousands of years of history destroyed, you know, by I mean, this garbage is going on, man. It's heartbreaking, you know, and yeah, like I don't think anyone cares about the Kurds. You know, they I mean, these Western governments, they pretend like that they care about the Kurds and then they abandon them. And there's even people on the left who say like, oh, we're abandoning our allies, but they didn't care when Turkey was ethnically cleansing Kurds last year in northern Syria. You know, when they were using like these former jihadists that have been incorporated into the Turkish army to go into northern Syria and kill Kurds. Yeah. You know, and by the way, not just Kurds have been ethnically cleansed. You know, there's also Syrians being killed there just for being Syrians. And I mean, man, there's so much terrible stuff. You know, there's one place in Syria called Malula, where it's the only place on earth where they still speak Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus, you know, and one of the oldest monasteries on the planet is there. And I've been there multiple times. I can't even count how many times I've been there. And dude, like this town was taken by jihadists. They desecrated everything. They I don't know if I can curse on the show.
It's okay.
But they fucked it up. They fucked it up. And that's thousands of years of history gone down the toilet, you know? And like, what are you supposed to say to that, man? Everyone is suffering from this shit just for like you know, so the military industrial complex can make a few bucks.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's kind of funny because I want to transition back to the YPG
Sure.
because that's the whole thing, is that we sent these fundamentalists in there for years, but it seemed when the Kurds kind of got a hold of their stance, they also did a lot of things that weren't really looked great upon. I have a tweet over here, and it talks about the YPG. And first off, let me point out, too, as well, that you were saying, like, we were talking about the funding of the Kurds so they can do all these things, or we funded ISIS so they can kill Kurds. And we have also, NATO ally Turkey, we've given them plenty of money for weapons, and they use them against the Kurds in their own country, the PKK.
Exactly.
Nobody ever talked about that and cried about those people over there as we were arming arming Turkey through NATO to the T, and we didn't care about them as well. But I think that's also something that people don't understand, is that they would never allow the Kurds to be on their border because they don't want them uniting with the PKK and having their own problems. But let's talk about this, because this was written from the Iraqi Christian Foundation. It said, your Kurdish YPG partners have terrorized Syrian Christians and others in the northeast Syria for years. You knew this and you kept funding them. While at state, you, Brett M.C. McCurk, also handed indigenous Iraqi Christian towns and Nevia Plains, Iraq, to Iranian-backed militias, #genocide maker. So what I'm also want to point out, too, as well, is a lot of these groups that we funded, whether it be the YPG, militia groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, they also killed a lot of Christians, I believe, that were in Syria and in northern Iraq. Can you speak of that, too, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many reports of this, man. Just like village after village of Christians being either driven out or killed in the most brutal ways, and not just by ISIS. Like you said, there's other groups that are doing this, and groups that are being armed by the West. You know, and they claim that they want to take down the repressive regime of Assad, and that they're for democracy and human rights and everything, and then they fund and sponsor groups that commit genocide, and even against Christians, and
you are a
it blows
Christian,
my
right?
mind.
You're from Syria, from Damascus, and you're a Christian, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously you're evident that people were living peacefully there for so long, whatnot. Now it's like, it just seems like we've funded fundamentalists on all sides, and everybody's killing each other. And that's why I think your video resonated so much with me, and why you're here today, is when you just said, get out. You've done enough.
Yeah, man. It's really, I can't even put into words like how heartbreaking it is. It's really something else. And it hurts to see this fabric of society being torn apart like that, because I wouldn't say that, like, all of a sudden every ethnic group in Syria hates one another now. No, I wouldn't say that. But the problem is that when you create this power vacuum, which started with the Iraq War, I view this civil war in Syria as a continuation of the Iraq War. I don't see it as something separate. Of course, we can discuss it as an entity in itself, but it's a result of the Iraq War, because you remove a dictator like Saddam, and then you get all these gangs, these jihadis crawling out of the woodwork, because they've been repressed by Saddam. So Saddam's repressing everyone. But, they used to say that he was affiliated with Al-Qaeda right before the invasion, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And this guy was really, like, would always crack down on, especially Islamist extremism. And the same with Assad. And so the problem is, you remove a dictator, but then you have like, it's like cutting the head off, what is that, a hydra again? You get like 3 heads popping out now. So you dealt with one problem, then you got 3 problems that popped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they end up doing even worse than what the dictator was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really terrible.
We also propped up Saddam Hussein years ago to fight against Iran. A lot of people don't understand that. They see the pictures of Rumsfeld, and it seems like that Saddam Hussein and Bashar al-Assad were better at taking care of Islamic fundamentalists than our country, who through programs like Timber Sycamore takes weapons from Libya after we destroy them and give it to a bunch of jihadists to turn the country upside down. Let me ask you a question, Richie. Do you have any hope moving forward right now? Because it seems to me we have these problems, but from everything we get from you, it's that our presence is the biggest problem. Remove our presence, and maybe we have a brightful future. Maybe we have a chance. Are you somewhat optimistic for the future of your country?
Look, man. The thing is that the way things seem now, the government has taken back. I mean, the Syrian army has taken back most of the territory, and I don't know what's going to happen, because the thing is, you still have 20,000 fighters in Idlib province. This is like, dude, this is like a fuse that's waiting to go off. Okay, this battle, what's going to happen in Idlib, man, this is going to be really, really bad, because there are some civilians in there too. Like, let's not forget that. There are civilians who are being held hostage in there, as we've seen over and over throughout this conflict. They're trapped. Sometimes they can't even get out because the jihadis use them as like human shields. And so you have all these fighters now that have been pushed into one area, and I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe after Idlib is done and the Syrian government works out a deal with the Kurds, maybe the country will be stabilized. But yeah, as long as you have, the U.S., Saudi Arabia, Qatar meddling, man, it's not bringing any good. I mean, what has this whole conflict achieved? Like I said, if there was any hope of a democratic transition in Syria, if there was any hope of a grassroots movement, it's been hijacked. It's been hijacked, and now it's turned into. We won't see that for years.
Yeah. What was the movement like? What was that? I mean, because let's be honest, because I think there was a small movement over there. I hate to say it was just the Arab Spring, because I think the Arab Spring is like a bought and paid for kind of like George Soros funding CIA light.
I agree.
But you can't deny that it was something uprising inside of Syria. And this is the point where maybe they said Bashar al-Assad got a little bit too crazy, too much like his father, and maybe didn't handle the situation properly when there was some type of uprising. What was the revolution in the uprising? And it was small when it started, but what was it? What was about, to your knowledge?
I mean, look, what we heard in the Western, narrative, let's put it that way, was that, you had a bunch of people coming out to protest, just like in Egypt and Tunisia and Libya. And all of a sudden, the government is shooting at them, right?
Yeah.
And where did this start? In Daraa? I think that's the town where it started.
Yes, it was.
And and so, I mean, dude, the thing is that while I agree that the Assad regime has been oppressive, like especially to journalists and anyone, like you can live a normal life, but if you open your mouth against the government, you're gonna get the ass whipping. That was kind of the way it was. But I don't think that he's that stupid that he would, like, after seeing what happened in the other Arab countries, that he would tighten his grip. I don't think that's the case. You know what? Something that people don't know. You know how the revolutions were organized in Libya and let's say Tunisia and Egypt. People use social media, right? They use Facebook to organize those revolutions. Now, this is not someone told me this. I've seen this with my own eyes. In 2010, in Syria, in 2011, what did Assad do? He actually unbanned all social media, because before that, yes, you couldn't actually access, I think, YouTube and Wikipedia and Facebook. These were all banned, but he actually unbanned all of them in the wake of the Arab Spring. So why would you do that? Like, if you're so scared of an uprising, why would you give the people what they want? I don't think he's as like stupid as the Western media make him out to be. I'm not saying that he's hasn't been brutal and people haven't been oppressed, of course, but I'm just saying that I think in the wake of the Arab Spring, when he saw what was happening in the other countries, he actually did try to meet the demands, or some of the demands, with reforms, instead of actually just like, let's kill everyone, And that's what I, that's what I understood. And it's really weird, because I actually just saw an article, a tweet right now by who posted it? Ben Norton, I think, at the Gray Zone.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like how Israel shot like 90 Palestinian civilians yesterday, right? With live rounds, live ammunition. And you remember the whole issue with Assad was like, oh, he's opening fire on protesters. All right, man. Well, let's go with this logic. If you have to remove a guy from office at all costs because he's shooting at protesters, how come that's allowed in Israel?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of logic is that? And by the way, this goes back to what you said earlier. Like, Turkey's a NATO ally, right? Why is the U.S. funding or even allied in the first place with a country that's committing genocide against any ethnic minority? Never mind the Kurds, who they're also allied with. It makes no sense, man. This is
sense. It's money. It's dollar bill, yo. I mean, we're still allies, and we still give weapons and funding to the T when it comes to Saudi Arabia, and they're beheading people in
Yeah,
the streets, whatnot.
exactly,
Big
exactly.
patriarchal system. I mean, come on, it's disgusting. So it doesn't surprise me when we do these things. It's just the hypocrisy of our government to think that people, well, maybe the people are that stupid if they keep buying it. But that's why we come and we talk to people like yourself from the area who give us an idea about what's going on. I mean, you grew up there, and like you said, your parents
Yeah.
met in the Golan Heights as UN peacekeepers. And I just, my heart bleeds for you, my man, because I've been talking about
Thank
the
you.
Syria. No, thank you, buddy, but I really am sorry. I mean, I really can't apologize for the megalomaniac psychos that have decided to do this, because they did it for two reasons. They wanted a gas line, number one, and number two, they really wanted to stick a knife in the side of Russia. It was a proxy against
Yeah,
Russia.
of course.
It was a proxy against Iran. So that's why they did this, and it is really a shame. But just talking to you today, at least hopefully, maybe we can see a brighter future, and maybe something
Yeah.
can move forward from this. I don't know. I mean, we need to get
I hope
out.
so
We
too.
need to unequivocally get out. And you've kind of pointed out, we've been seeing this. I'm reading your Twitter. The oil, it's there. We've jacked, and we just took it. And it
Yeah.
really is a shame, because I think that like you said, it's about 25% of the GDP that they need for the money for
Exactly,
Syria,
yeah.
and also the wheat area.
And
And I think it should be known that doing this is actually starving people out in Syria. We're not letting them rebuild and regrow.
Yeah, and something that I would always see like year after year. Again, I'm not trying to like make excuses for the Syrian government or whatever people want to say, but something that I've witnessed was that every year the infrastructure would get better. There were no more electricity cuts. There were no more water cuts. This is at least in Damascus. I'm not going to speak for the other regions, but I would see things getting better. All right, and an independent Arab nation developing itself, nah, they can't have that. They got to
Yeah.
cripple it. So they went in and they screwed it up. And like you said, it's not just about the oil. It's also to stick a knife in the side of Russia, because Syria and Iraq, they've been allied with the Soviet Union, or at least let's say on good terms, very, very good terms, since the Cold War.
Yeah.
All right? This ain't nothing new. And I mean, what can I say, man? It's all about the money, It's
Yeah.
all about dividing, conquering. That's all they care
Have you
about.
ever been to Lebanon?
Have I been to Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, it's very close
Yeah.
to Syria. It's the border of Syria and
I've
stuff.
been to Lebanon like more times than I can count.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you think about Lebanon? What's going on over there today? I mean, do you have any
My-
idea?
My parents were also stationed there because there's also a peacekeeping mission there between Lebanon and Israel. So in South Lebanon, what's happening right there right now? I actually did a video on that a few days ago with my cousin who was living there recently, waiting to go to Canada. Well, the thing with Lebanon, and we discussed this, I asked him, what's the difference between what happened in Syria, the revolution there, if you want to call it a revolution, and what's happening in Lebanon? And, the difference is that what happened in Syria was political. This was, we got to get Assad. It's against this guy, right? The figurehead. But what's going on in Lebanon right now, it's economical. Okay, so the situation in Lebanon is really dire. I mean, my cousin told me himself, like, there were times like where living in Syria in a war zone, you were living better than in Lebanon because the infrastructure is crumbling so bad in Lebanon. The electricity in itself is a huge issue, It's so bad that people have to buy supplemental electricity from private companies. I mean, it's crazy. And you also have the corruption on the part of the government is rampant. They've been and lots of embezzlement going on. They've been stealing money for they allocate the money for the budget and then they don't sign the contracts and they pocket the money. And this has been an issue that's been going on for 20, 30 years. It didn't just start last week with this WhatsApp tax that some people think. No, it wasn't just that. That's just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like kind of somewhat like an Ecuador situation in the Middle East where it was like everybody was like, oh, well, it's the gas thing. It was like, nope, that was just the straw to break the camel's back and whatnot. Is the Lebanese government like a quasi kind of like Christian kind of government of sorts? And what was the relationship to Syria? Wasn't it like one country before and it was kind of like, because I heard this and somebody just put it up, it's 40% unemployment inside of Lebanon.
Yeah, that's true. It's that the youth unemployment is about 37%, like everyone under 35. It's really bad, and the people are struggling there and I feel for them, And yeah, like you said, it used to be one country like before the French and the British, carved it up. So, I mean, but Lebanese people are very patriotic. Don't tell them that they're Syrian or something like that. They are Lebanese, and of course, and no one's debating that. They are very patriotic people, and I feel for them. And something interesting pertaining to your question about the government there. Yes, the government is very sectarian. You actually have a quota. You have like X number of Christians that need to be in the government, X number of Sunni, X number of Shia, etc. And what's really interesting about the protests that we've been seeing lately is that everyone is waving the Lebanese flag, not partisan flags or etc. All of them, they're together with the Lebanese flag. That's really cool. That's like a proud moment for all Arabs and I think all humans to see that, like people actually in unity about something. It's like the people versus the government and nothing else, That's really good.
It's pretty cool to the fact that you're saying that it's a what's the word I'm looking for, where they have to have a certain amount of Christians, a certain amount of Sunnis. So then why the hell did their government screw up if there was so many different groups and eyes watching everything? Was it just all up top of them, or?
Well, I mean, I can't speak as to which faction is more corrupt than the other. I mean, but the corruption is rampant. I mean, you'd even if someone would leave office, usually their son or their nephew or their relative would take over. And, it's really bad, man, because the people who are suffering in the end are the Lebanese people, as usual. It's just government screwing over the working class, And this stuff that they tried to do like 2 weeks ago, they tried to put a tax on WhatsApp calls. They try to put a tax on tobacco, on petrol, basically everything that screws the middle class,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it, man. And of course, there's a part of me, there's like 1% of me that smells a little bit of CIA, in this whole issue.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Once again, you start talking Arab Spring. And I'm like, but Arab Spring was like, once again, it seemed like there was like a little thing going on in Syria. They poured gasoline on it. Hong Kong, exactly, what's going on there right now? It's like you can see it's just like NED, NGO, all these NGOs which are pumping all this money into these protests, and they're getting violent and whatnot. But yeah, I am sniffing a little bit of CIA in Lebanon.
Always, man. That's my skeptical side, because if you know history, if you understand what happened throughout the Cold War, if you understand what happened throughout the Arab Spring, you have to be skeptical, right? And so I always smell a little bit of CIA meddling in there, man. This is their job. I don't believe for 1 second that the CIA field offices spread out throughout Lebanon, and the Mossad, by the way. I don't believe for 1 second that they just sat around and then looked out the window. So, there's a protest going on. No, I mean, they could have had hands in this. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seemed like in Egypt, that it was like the youth that was really protesting and was bringing upon revolution. But then it seemed like the Arab Spring hijacked their revolution and everything went crazy over there.
Yeah.
That's from the studies I did from that a long time ago. So I can see something like that right now. There's a girl named Sarah Abdallah. I don't know if you know her tweets. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah.
But she's like, "Oh, shut up," because somebody said something about the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring.
And she was just like, "Shut up about that shit." Last time that happened, we had a NATO intervention and everything in Libya was blown up to bits. Stay the hell out of our business. Telling people like, stay out of it. We don't want any Western influence whatsoever.
Exactly, man.
And I think that's something that the American people have to start doing, is start holding their government accountable. If Donald Trump wants to have this nationalistic, non-interventionist mentality, then tell him to tell his fucking CIA to stay out of Libya, to stay out of Syria, and now to stay out of Lebanon. Hey, my man, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get on out.
Thank you, Craig.
Tell everybody where they can find you. My man Richie, also known as Papi Chulaman. Let everybody know about your YouTube and your Twitter and everything. Go crazy, my man.
So, you can follow me on Twitter at Papi Chulaman, PapiChulomin. And same thing on YouTube. Just type Papi Chulaman and you're going to find me. I should probably change my name back to my real name, though, soon. I'll do that soon. But, that's where you can find me. And thank you so much for having me on, Chris. Craig, I really, really appreciate it, talking about Syria. And, being given this chance to actually clear some stuff up and give a point of view that's like organic and not, from the CIA.
I know, right?
So, yeah.
Hey, real quick, Richie, this is Jonny Tsunami on the ones and twos.
Hi.
I got a question. What did you think about, Tulsi going over there visiting Syria and, she went there, talked with priests and talked with people and then eventually, met Assad. What do you think about that? I want your opinions.
Look, man, I think that they are going to hold that visit that she had with Assad against her till the end of time. Till the end of time. They were always going to bring that up because that's the only thing that they have against her to disqualify, to denigrate, to downplay her anti-war stance. That's all they have, And I think she took that trip in good faith. I don't think she's some Russian acid. What a joke.
No. Yeah.
I think she's been vetted like 50 million times, man, to be in her position in Congress and in the army. And yeah, so I mean, her trip there, I think it was done in good faith, and I do appreciate that she met with religious leaders, she met with Christians, she met with people of various faiths and ethnicities. That's important. You have to do that when you go to Syria. You can't just go and visit like some jihadi group like John McCain and Marco Rubio, and be like, yeah, these are my buddies over here. They're gonna go decapitate Christians.
Yeah, I think a lot of that too was also protecting Obama. You know what I'm saying? Because Obama, it was his war. So the fact that he went after, obviously after Assad and funded, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, ISIS, he funded all these terrorist groups. The fact they have to protect him, they have to make Assad the biggest demon in the world.
Of course.
So the fact that she went over there to talk to him, to actually just to find out the peace, and like we said, she also talked to Christians, she talked to religious leaders. We asked her on this show what she was talking about the people, and for us, that's what made her our champion. The fact that she's willing to go talk to adversaries, to enemies, to people in all these situations, to find the truth. And she did go there with Dennis Kucinich, and Freebird brought that up. Thank you so much. And that's a big thing, too. It was a mission of peace. It was a mission to find out what's what. And we should always be talking to people outside our own groups.
Of course.
So, Johnny, any more?
Yeah.
All right, my man. Thank you so much. We know where to find you. Richie's here.
Guys,
ladies
so
and
much,
gentlemen,
Craig.
thank you for no problem, my man. And I'll be following your Twitter. And hey, good luck to your family out there. And we send our blessings from the Convo Couch.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you. Take care.
Speak again soon, bro.
Okay, see you, man.
Definitely.
Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching
Take
the
care,
Convo
Johnny.
Couch. We'll be back later on with Fiorella. She'll be back in the house. We'll be talking some more stuff. Some good stuff later on for Pasta Jardula and Jonny Sue on the ones and twos. Remember, we have a Patreon, a Twitter, a Twitch, but more importantly, get on over to our Rockfin, ROKFIN. You can subscribe, and of course, if you got a few extra bucks, we have our Patreon down below. We'll see you later. Convo out.
Peace.